Keys to better sleep from understanding the history of sleep. Did you know that as recently as a couple hundred years ago, the culture of sleep was way different? People were going to sleep at different times. By the way, welcome in, fam. I'm gonna throw the phone in my pocket as I collect grass to feed the sheep here. So you're gonna hear some nature sounds in the background, sound of the wheelbarrow, sound of the sickle, sound of the wind as we dive into some health secrets that a lot of people don't realize talk about. Welcome in, fam. Much love, Trav here. So a lot of people realize sleep is important, but don't look at it historically in the same way that we look at like paleo diet. You know, what were our hunter-gatherer ancestors doing? What were our agricultural ancestors doing? How has industrialism changed things? And we will also look at exercise from that way, but I don't hear a lot of people look at sleep that way, because industrial innovations have really changed the way that we sleep, and it's important to understand this if you want to maximize sleep for your own health. So, for instance, well, actually, let's start by diving into the technical innovations that really change things. First, recently, you have the alarm clock. Slightly less recently, you had cities that had clock towers that wake people up. People obviously are waking up early and at different times and have reasons to get up at sunrise and stuff like that. But before the alarm clock, people are not really waking up to jolting, sounds of noise, alarms blaring, and so on. If you're ready to wake up, you would have woken up. If you're not, your body would have just had you keep on sleeping. So one of the things that does is it creates a stress in you, a stress reaction to start your day, release some cortisol. Here's an alarm, here's some danger, right? So whenever possible, it's good to not rely on an alarm, which means you have to actually give yourself enough sleep that you're gonna wake up before the time your alarm would go off or when you have to. That's really challenging, but it's something you should realize that you should be trying to do. Now, the next innovation, well, there's really two main ones, because with the alarm clock, the clock is part of that. It used to be like sunrise, sunset. People had general ideas of time, but not precise, especially with a personalized clock. The other innovation that has really changed things is electric lighting. Electric lighting is less than 200 years old. Shout out to Thomas Edison. Pretty interesting stuff. Before this time, the earliest lit streets was in Paris when they did gas lamps or something like that. There were gas lamps before lighting. Obviously there's fire and candlelight and stuff like that, but that stuff's a lot more expensive. And as a result, fewer people had access to it, and therefore, basically the nights were longer. The days were shorter. The innovation of electric lighting extends daylight functionally. Biologically, it suppresses melatonin. These blue lights or whatever suppress melatonin, causing you to stay up later. And we see this played out as people stay up later, people have these sleep, people think they're owls and stuff like that because they're on their smartphones at night. Obviously, smartphone is kind of a continuation of electric lighting, but stuff is really disruptive to sleep. Now, what's interesting, however, is that the lighting lets you get more work done. Instead of being in the dark, you can write, you can read, you can do all sorts of things. You can go out, drive around, It used to be when there's 14 hours of darkness, what do? You actually sleep more, or you spend more hours in bed. And this is where it's interesting, because it seems that as recently as 200 years ago, it was the norm or semi-normal for people to spend longer hours sleeping, but with a gap in the middle, differentiating between first sleep and second sleep, like sleep for 5 hours, wake up for an hour, sleep for another 5 hours. We know this for a few reasons. One is a lot of references in older literature about first sleep and second sleep. Another one is a more recent study on people that basically had them be exposed to 14 hours of darkness a day, and they, after removed from the study, they went into this 2 sleep period thing where they're sleeping for it was like 6 hours and 6 hours plus 2 hours of wakefulness, something like that. Now, the ramifications of this are interesting because we're trying to make the most of the time. I'm not trying to be asleep for 12, 14 hours, We have inventions, and it doesn't make as much sense to split up the sleep when you're sleeping for like 7 hours to do 4 hours and 3 hours with a break. So that's been phased out, one, because cultural, and two, because of technical innovations. However, it's possible that our bodies are not adapted for that sort of one long 8-hour break. It's possible that our bodies are not adapted for alarm clocks. It's possible our bodies are still not really adapted for lighting. I mean, certain scientists argue that 10,000 years is not enough to evolve for agriculture. Well, if that's true, 200 years is certainly not enough to evolve for electric lighting, right? So what are some key takeaways from this? One is, well, first of all, I mean, now that you have a better historical understanding, you can just take a better look at what you're doing. And something for you to think about is, how much sleep are you getting? Are you relying on an alarm clock? Are you stressed in the morning? If so, you're not going to sleep early enough. If you're not going to sleep early enough, what role does lighting play in that? Should you be putting your phone in airplane mode and throwing it on the other side of the wall? Either dimming your lights or using one of those blue light blockers. You got a lot of options for this, but it's a lot to think about, because if you sleep poorly, you're gonna feel like shit. It's really bad for your health. I don't really need to tell you that, you know. It feels fucking bad, right? So it's a lot of things to think about. Would love to collect some information from you if you'd like to share in the comments down below. How many hours are you sleeping? Okay. Are you relying on an alarm clock? If not, how much earlier do you think you would have to go to sleep? What do you think you would have to do in order to go to sleep as far as the lighting is concerned? How can you manage your technology so that you can get more working hours, more entertaining hours, but also not be super disruptive to your evolved sleep? It's a lot to think about. So I look forward to hearing what you have to say. If you have some more info on this, we'd love to hear in the comments down below. Let us know what you think. Appreciate you. Much love, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say.